Hello friends, I am Dr. Sumit and I welcome you to my latest video series, Life Skills for Inner Transformation. Just to give you a brief background about myself, I am a chemical engineer by profession and a gold medalist from Mumbai University and done my master's in management from the University of Illinois. And I'm a doctorate in the science of NLP, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, which is the highest science of the human mind and human behavior. I am also a seeker and teacher of spiritual sciences, Vedic philosophy, and Bhagavad Gita with the blessings of several gurus. Today, friends, we are going to talk about a very interesting topic and which is known as Vedic principles for modern management. Vedic principles have been thousands of years old, and today we shall look into that how these principles make a lot of sense in even today's corporate world. Before that, I would like to give my respects to the old Vedic prayers to the Guru. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Dev Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Guru is only Brahma, Guru is only Vishnu, Guru is only Shiva. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, he is even above the Brahma. Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Salutations to the Guru. The second Vedic prayer is to the mother, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya. Mother, lead me from darkness to light, lead me from unreality to reality, lead me from death to immortality. When I say immortality, it is enlightenment, the realization of the self. So we start today's presentation with these two prayers, which is the most important prayers. The word God has always wondered everybody that what is actually the meaning of God. God stands for generator, operator, and destructor. That is why in Vedic philosophy we have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma is the generator, Vishnu is the operator, and Shiva is the destructor. And to generate anything, we need knowledge in life. That's why Brahma's wife is Saraswati. And to operate anything, we need money. So that's why Vishnu's wife is Lakshmi. And to destroy anything, we need anger, which Shiva does not have. That's why his wife is Parvati. So God stands for generator, operator, and destructor. The actual definition of God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. He has no beginning, he has no end, he is present everywhere, and he cannot be destroyed or even created. The law of thermodynamics also defines energy the same way. Energy cannot be destroyed, it only gets transmuted from one form to the other form, and it is present everywhere. It has no past or no present. So the law of thermodynamics and the definition of God matches each other. Mark Twain once said, ancients have stolen our secrets. Shivalinga is the greatest example of energy capacitance. If you look at the Shivalinga carefully in any Shiva temple, you will find on the Shivalinga an elliptical orbit with two dots. Elliptical orbit actually shows the orbit of the electron, and the two dots are the neutron and the proton. Initial times when the sages used to sit and meditate during the Satyuga, they used to get visions like this, and they saw the atom thousands and thousands of years back, and they put it in a form of a sculpture. Then came Albert Einstein, E is equal to mc square in the last century, proved that mass and energy are interconvertible. So what I'm trying to tell you, friends, whatever we see in today's scientific world, in the modern world, was actually already told thousands of years back in our Vedas. Only thing is that we have not studied and understood that. And being in India, we take these things for granted. But once you understand and do your prayers and do your sadhanas, then it has a different paradigm. Isha Vasyam Idugum Sarvam Yatkinchat Jagatyam Jagat is from the Ishavasyam Upanishads, where the meaning of it is that energy of the God is in every atom and every molecule, which is so true. God is also defined as Anoranium and Mahatmaniam. Anoranium means smaller than the smallest atom, and Mahatmaniam bigger than the biggest of the universe. So that is how the ancients defined energy as. One of the first persons to lay down management principles was Chanakya, who was well known as Kautilya, who wrote the first book on management called Arthashastra way back in 325 BC. As you know, friend, Chanakya was the teacher and guru of Chandragupta Maurya, and Chandragupta Maurya was just a very, very ordinary person, and he trained him to become one of the most powerful kings have ever ruled this country. With the help of Chanakya, Chandragupta Maurya could defeat uh, Nandas, and that is how he established his Maurya Empire, which was further ruled by Bindusar and also Ashoka. And in these years, Maurya Empire spread from what is today's Afghanistan, Pakistan, three-fourths of India, Bangladesh, Burma, Thailand, Malaysia. So the Maurya Empire was so huge. So can you imagine what kind of management principles you would need to manage such a huge empire? Today, to manage a small company of few employees becomes such a big challenge nowadays. And managing such a big empire, it is only the principles which Chanakya had laid down where Chandragupta Maurya was successful. So he says in his Arthashastra, there is some self-interest behind every friendship. There is no friendship without self-interest. This is the bitter truth. So biggest Guru mantra is never share your secrets with anybody. It will destroy you. Some people have a loud mouth and they like to talk things which have not yet happened. You must understand there is something called as jealousy in people and also drishti. When people feel jealous of what you are working upon, and that bad energy, what they give it to you, will not help you release your goal. So always keep your eyes open, ears open, and mouth shut. An egoistic person can be won over by being respected. A crazy person can be won over by allowing him how to behave in insane manner. And a wise person can only be won by truth. So true. Imagine these psychological principles Chanakya established way back, 2000 years back. Once you start working on something, don't be afraid of failure and don't abandon it. People who work sincerely are the people who are happiest. ABC of business. A stands for attitude, B stands for belief, and C stands for commitment, and D stands for dedication. If you do not have proper commitment and dedication, you will never be successful in life. Before you start work, always ask yourself three questions. Why am I doing this? What the results may be? And will I be successful? The management principles set by Chanakya were Vasudev Eva Kutumbakam, accepting the whole world as one and one family. So if you are a CEO or a owner of a large company, you must treat all your employees as one in your family. Then only you will be successful because each will contribute to the success of the company. Samarpan Bhava, that is a kind of emotion you must have of dedication and surrender. Only when you surrender yourself and be dedicated to your goals, you will be successful. Loka Sangraha, you must look at welfare of all beings. In modern world, in modern corporate world, this looks like things like ESOP, where the employee stock exchange option is there, where when the company benefits, each and every employee of the company also benefits. So this was a concept actually started by many companies like Infosys, Wipro, and in fact in the US, Microsoft was one of the first companies to start ESOP options, which is a very good way of retaining good people because apart from their basic salaries, they will also grow, their money will grow in the stock exchange. Shubh Labh. I think all of you remember during Deepavali, when we open the new books, we write this word Shubh Labh, which actually means ethical profits. That means you earn everything with ethically. Nishakam karma, that is without any expectation, deeds without any greed. Today, if you are an entrepreneur or you are working for any corporate in a senior capacity, you cannot do actions with greed. The moment greed comes, means your downfall has started. Ati hasyatya varjatya. You must shun from extremes. Any kind of extremes will lead you into trouble. What is the Vedic way of worship? There are two types of worship: Suguna, which is the physical form of the god, and Nirguna, which is the invisible part of the god. In earlier times, friends, sages used to meditate for days and months together. They used to fast for many, many days. And when during their meditation, they used to get certain forms in their meditation of particular energies. And these forms, when they used to come to them mentally, they used to sculpt these people. Then there was a one cult which came out called as Tapatis, and these Tapatis actually made sculptures based on the meditations which they were getting. So different forms of gods were created by them based on their divine revelation which they got, because the state of consciousness was in a different dimension altogether. And that is how in Vedic way of worship, there is one way is called as Suguna, which is the physical form of the sculptures, and the Nirguna, which is invisible part, which is purely in meditation. Purely through meditation, you honor the particular energy. So these shrines, what we see in today's temples, are an indicator of the indicated, indicating the indication. They are the representative of the represented, representing the representation. They are the pointer pointing towards the pointed, which is other than the pointer. Confusing? So let's have a better idea of what I'm trying to say. Let's look at the first most favorite god in the Hindu mythology, which is the Ganesha. So what actually Ganesha represents from management point of view? He has small eyes, learn to be observant. The CEO is supposed to be very observant. He has big ears, learn to listen properly. In Sanskrit, we say Atma Vareshotavyam. If you want to be a good communicator, you must be a good listener. I'm sorry to say, most of the people are not good listeners. They only keep on talking and they don't allow others to speak at all. He has a trunk. Now, if you know elephant, trunk is always doing something. It's always fidgeting and trying to search something. It keeps on cleaning and helps him to eat. But it is so effective. It can lift, it can take a needle from the ground, and also it can uproot a tree. So it has a trunk, learn to be effective and also be curious. Unless and until the CEO is curious about new technologies, new paradigms, new ways of working, he will not be very successful. He has Modak in one hand. This Modak represents two things. The Modak is in a form of a money bag. So it also represents money, and it also represents learn to talk sweetly. Modaks are sweet. So learn to talk sweetly. When I said sweetly, you must always talk as if there is honey in your mouth. Jikyahu madhumaktaha is one of the Sanskrit shlokas where Jikyamu madhumaktaha. Talk as if there is honey in your mouth. Kabir used to say, ऐसी वाणी बोलिए मन का आपा कोई औरन को शीतल करे और आप भी शीतल होएं. He has axe in one hand. All Hindu gods have got axe. What does it mean? It's a metaphor that learn to detach yourself. Now, detach is not opposite of attachment. The God said, don't get attached so much that you will be only happy when you get that particular thing. So learn to detach yourself from one particular point. Don't be attached to things so much that you lose your peace of mind. He has a lotus flower. Most of the Hindu gods and in some other religions also, they have a lotus flower or they're sitting on the lotus flower, because lotus flower symbolizes rise above negativity. Lotus flower always grows in algae, in a lake, with the dirt below, but it is always above the dirt. Padma Patra Mimambasa is what the Vedas say, that learn to be like a lotus, be above negativity. There is a lot of negativity in the society. There is a lot of negativity around you, but you have to be above them. He has a rope in one hand. Why? He pulls you towards him. Come to me to remove all your problems. In front of Ganesha photo, there will always be a mouse. That mouse represents our problems. And this mouse is always looking towards Ganesha. Why? You should be the master of the problem, and problem should not be your master. One of his tooth is broken. One of his tooth, there are many stories behind it, but actually it represents raga and dvesha. The human mind is always caught up in this raga and dvesha. I like this, I don't like that. I don't like this, I don't like that. So it's always wavering, friends. So when he cuts the tooth, he says, stick to one thing and proceed further. Then only you will be successful. Let us look at what Lord Krishna symbolizes. The word Krishna has come from the Sanskrit word akarshanam. The word akarshanam means magnetism or attraction. So he is like a magnet. Krishna is like a magnet. Why? Because of the attributes and the qualities he has. He is considered as a most ideal and highly evolved person called as Purushottama. Lord Krishna was a Purna avatar. He was a 16-point avatar, what we say technically. Even Ram was not a Purna avatar. Ram was only 12-digit avatar, whereas Lord Krishna was 16-digit avatar. And after that, only Sai Baba was 16-point avatar. So please understand, friend, the avatars who are 16 points, they are called as Purushottama. They are complete human being. His skin was sky blue color, which means infinity. And always behind Krishna, you will find a cow, because from that time itself, he is trying to say, protect the cow, because cow not only gives you milk, but also with its gobar and the dung, what it produces. One cow can irrigate one full acre of land, friends. So, which is used in organic farming. So that is why Lord Krishna used to propagate that always protect the cow, because cow is there, society is there. He has a flute always. The flute represents the human heart, which is devoid of evil thoughts. There's a wonderful story of Radha once asking Krishna that, Krishna, whenever I find you, you are always playing the flute, and the flute is always very close to you. Even I am not that close to you. How come the flute is so close to you? Then he gave a very beautiful answer. He says, this flute is very close to me because it has got five holes. And these five holes are the five senses. So these five senses, the flute has surrendered it to me, and it allows my divine breath to flow through. It has no ego because it is devoid of ego and it is in complete surrender. That is why this flute is so dear to me, and it always I have it. He stands for diplomacy and tact. If you have observed, I'm sure during these lockdown, most of you would have again seen the Mahabharata, which came 20, 25 years back, and you must have refreshed your memory on Krishna. And Nitish Bharadwaj, who has done a very good role and literally depicted the nature of Lord Krishna and his nature. You would have observed that he's always calm and quiet, and any situation does not disturb him. And he's a person with diplomacy and tact. The way he talks to Kauravas also the same way, he talks to Pandavas also the same way. And Krishna was one of the first persons in his Gita teaching, gave the concept of Atman, the soul. Earlier to that, people were thinking that we are only this body and we are only our mind, but nobody had thought of the soul. Although the Vedas, the sages knew about it, but Krishna made it very clear in Bhagavad Gita. He also taught Arjuna something very beautiful, that evil against evil is not a sin. If people are evil, then if you also, it is not a sin. So that is one of the greatest teachings of Bhagavad Gita. He stands for compassion, love, and role model for many. With Radha, a lot of people don't know Radha was Lakshmi's avatar, which shows unconditional love. And a lot of you may be feeling, have a question in your mind, that why did they not get married? Because sage Bhrigu had given a curse to Krishna, and that is why um, Radha and Krishna did not marry. But their eternal love is described in Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, in a very nice way, where unconditional love is what Krishna gives. So, what is this unconditional love? The unconditional love for your company, for your business, for your people, for your product, and for your customers. If you have that kind of attitude and concept in your mind, friend, you're guaranteed to succeed in life. Let's look at Lord Shiva. The definition of Lord Shiva is Sham Mangalam Karoti, which represents auspiciousness and destroyer of evil and darkness. Sham Mangalam means auspiciousness. Karoti means he is a destroyer. Destroyer of what? Of evil and darkness, which is ignorance. Lord says in the Gita, Agyano tu jnanam avritam te namushanti jantava. The whole society is suffering from ignorance and arrogance. Ignorance means I don't know, and arrogance is you don't know who I am. So when you have that kind of attitude, friends, then you are still living in darkness. You are not coming into light. So again, the Vedic prayer of the goddess Asatoma, lead me from darkness to light. The Trishul represents the divinity in all the states, means waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Jagrat, Swapna, and Shushupti. And above all the three gunas, the Sattvic guna, Rajasic guna, and the Tamasic guna. The Sattvic guna and Rajasic is for the Sattvigas, and Tamasic is for the lower kind of feelings which is there. Being ascetic, abstain from all indulgence and pleasures. He has a third eye. Third eye represents the intuition which all of us have had. Friends, as human beings, we have intuitive power, but unfortunately, we don't realize it and we do not make use of. If you are into any kind of meditation for few months or years, you will find that your sixth sense and your third eye will start opening, and you'll start getting premonitions of things well in advance. This is called intuitive power. You'll be surprised, and some of the universities in the world are now giving degrees in intuitive management. This intuition is also taught to people in secret services, in the army, in CBI, in FBI, and also in the police force, where intuitively sometimes they solve certain cases which logically it does not make sense. In fact, all the senior officers are taught how to develop their intuition. And in one of my earlier videos, I've already mentioned about this, that how to develop this intuitive power. The Shakti represents the energy and the electrons in motion. Shiva cannot do anything without his Shakti. That is why when uh, Shiva went into meditations for hundreds of years, he was woken up by the gods, the Kamdev, to get married to Parvati. And after he got married to Parvati, Kartikan was born out of both the energies put together. And Kartik got only destroyed the demon, which was impossible to kill because of the boons he got from Lord Brahma. So you must understand, friends, that Shiva on his own is nothing, an atom is nothing without its electron. So it is the electron and the proton and the neutron which makes the difference. Chanting the Shiva mantra, Mahamrityunjaya mantra, in difficult times gives great inner strength and emotional balance. Wearing the Rudraksh also protects you from evil eye. The mantra for Lord Shiva is Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukim Bandhana Nityo Mukshiya Mahamritat. If you chant this mantra 108 times on Mondays, friends, you will be protected and you'll have very great inner strength and emotional balance, especially during these difficult times during the lockdown period, because businesses are at stake. Let's look at Lord Hanuman. He is a wonderful example of an ordinary Vanar to an extraordinary multitasking being due to utmost faith and dedication. As you know, friends, Hanuman was just a monkey, simple monkey, but he was totally dedicated to Lord Ram. And because of that, he became such a powerful being. He is the best example of humility in spite of being so powerful. He has knowledge of all the Mahavidyas and 64 arts, greatest Karma Yogi, by hard work and dedication. Only God to be not touched by Shani Dev. Friends, you must be knowing or you must be thinking that Shani is a bad God and Shani comes in our life. Actually, Shani was created by Lord Shiva to keep the gods in check, because a lot of gods, they did tapas and they did certain prayers and certain Vedic rituals by which they became very powerful, but they started misusing their powers and started doing certain karmas which were against dharma. So the Lord of Dharma was created by Lord Shiva, which is nothing but Shanidev. And Shanidev's job is to keep everybody in check. Anybody who does any act out of Dharma, he punishes them by giving them bad times. But if you are always in the path of Dharma, there is nothing to worry about. Shani will not even touch you. Hanuman was the only god who was not touched by Shani, because Hanuman from the beginning was always on the path of Dharma. For him, everything was Ram and nothing else. He never understood anything. Whatever he did it within the Vedika Vidhan, which is the dharmic aspect, which is created by the gods. Hanuman actually represents the mind, which is like a monkey, as all of us know. It is very fickle and can fly at speed of light. It can expand, it can contract, it can do anything. It has no limits at all, beyond certain imagination. But once the mind surrenders to the Atman, which is nothing but Ram sits in your soul, it assumes divine strength and capable of powers beyond imagination. That is what is called as pratihara. When you start doing introspection, when you start doing certain yogic practices, you start developing divine powers within you. And these divine powers is an automatic process. God is not somewhere outside you, friends. All these qualities, whatever I'm talking about with each of these God, these are potentials within you. This is not somewhere outside. These are potentials within you. Only thing is that you have to recognize it and you have to convert it into kinetic energy, into action. When you do it into action, you automatically get the divine strength and the whole divinity starts supporting you. Let us look at goddess Lakshmi. The word Lakshmi comes from Lakshya or goal. So that's why the company should do its goal setting, the CEO should do its goal setting, the employees and the team leaders should do their goal setting. Without any goal in life, you have no purpose in life. So the purpose of life is to have life of purpose. And life of purpose is to have a proper goal in life. The goal need not be always material. It can be spiritual, it can be well-being, it can be country, it can be anything. She represents the wealth earned out of purity and just. Also represents self-sustenance. But she also creates delusion and maya. Maya means that she gives you delusions and over ambitions in people. Goddess Lakshmi's other name is Sri Devi, and she sits on the bosom of Lord Vishnu. So one side is Sri Devi and the other side is Bhudevi. Bhudevi means the goddess of earth. If you want Sri Devi, you must also worship the Bhudevi, which is the goddess of the nature, goddess of earth. If you give respect to the earth and if you meditate and give all your love and healing to earth, the earth has no other option but to give you wealth. So Sri Devi will bless you with wealth, sustaining wealth, only if you give respect. So that means we must respect the nature and we must give respect to not only the flora and the fauna, the plants, the animals, the birds, insects. Everybody has their own right to live because they contribute to each other in this ecological cycle. But as you have seen in last few years, the man has been so greedy that they have been interfering with the nature, and nature when it rebounds back, you have things like pandemic like corona, and that has taught this whole world a very big lesson because we have interfered with the earth. So she represents the earth, so one needs to be dogmatic and down to earth and practical in life. She is also a mediator for her husband Vishnu. Always keep one mediator. Don't expose yourself everywhere. If you start exposing yourself everywhere, you will become vulnerable and you can't say no. So always keep one filter in between you and people or your customer so that you can give the solution. You have some time to think and you can get back. Again, lotus, she sits on the lotus because she is a symbol of purity and enlightenment amid ignorance, which I have explained. Padma Patra Mimambasa, when you are above the negativity, then automatically you will attract Lakshmi in your life. At mental level, she represents positive attitude and harmony. Her four arms represents the dharma, the artha, the kama, and moksha. Dharma, the religious practice; artha, the purpose; Calm is your desires, and moksha is your self-realization. When we say moksha, it's not in the sense that you don't. Moksha also means that you have self-realized yourself, and you have understood the cycle of birth and death very well, and you have understood human life very well, which is not very difficult. And we take birth in this body for this purpose only. So moksha also means that we are self-realized, and you're reducing your further number of births. Let's look at what Goddess Durga represents. Goddess Durga represents the women power and the matriarchal society. Friends, few years back, just before the British era started in India, we had some very good kingdoms of the Rajputs as well as Marathas. And these empires, the Maratha Empire, Rajput empires, were actually led by the eldest lady of the family. Like the classic example is of Shivaji being brought up by his mother, and entire empire, including the king, used to listen to the leading lady. So it was like most of these empires were led matriarchal in nature, in the sense they used to give utmost respect to the eldest lady in the family. What an ideal woman should be. So Durga also represents what an ideal woman should be. So she received powerful weapons from different gods to defeat lower negative energies represented by the demons like Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Maya, Mada, Matsarya are the demons in our life. And we are always fighting with these demons. So like she has 10 hands and discus she received from Lord Vishnu, sword from the sun god, trident from Shiva, and so on. So a lot of gods contributed, and finally one goddess Durga was created as one of the most powerful goddess by combining the energies of several gods and goddesses. So it's a classic example of merger and acquisition. So if several companies can join together and become one single conglomerate, it would be a most powerful organization in the world. A good example I want to give here, the biggest merger in the history of mankind has been in 2002 between Vodafone and a German company called Mannesmann, which was a $202 billion merger which happened, and it made Vodafone as the biggest company in the world in the telecom sector. So friends, merger and acquisition is a good example where several companies can join together and become one single conglomerate. We know our crisis with crowdfunding. So it's another example of crowdfunding. Praying to Goddess Durga makes one immune to evil energies and calamities. The mantra to Goddess Durga is Om Shrim Dum Durge Durge Rakshini Rakshini Namaha. Om Shrim Dum Durge Durge Rakshini Rakshini Namaha. Chanting this on Tuesdays, on Fridays will also protect you from any kind of evil energies and calamities. Lord Dattatreya. Here I want to cite an example of Lord Dattatreya, who was the son of Anasuya. And in fact, when he was a child, just hardly 12 years old, he was walking in the forest where one of the kings of that particular area was meditating. The king, when he came out of his meditation, saw Dattatreya, and he was hardly 12 years old, but he had a very good shine on his face and very kind of a luster on his face, a divine luster. So this king asked Dattatreya, "Who is your guru?" At that time, people used to be recognized by their guru. So suppose you say, "My guru is Dronacharya." There is no further question asked. If you have said your guru is Dronacharya, people know at what level you are. So Dattatreya smilingly replied to the king, and he said, "My guru is the whole nature." He says, "Nature?" He says, "Who are your gurus?" So he says, "My first guru is the river." He said, "I learned commitment from the river, because river starts from Gangotri. Ganga starts from Gangotri, and it has the commitment to reach the Bay of Bengal. In spite of all the hurdles, dams in between, in spite of that, it still reaches the Bay of Bengal. It has the commitment. So I learned commitment from the river." Then he told about the moon. He says, "I learned humility from the moon, because moon does not have a light of its own. It only reflects the light of the sun. So always the moon says, nothing is mine, everything is thine, nothing is mine, everything is thine. This is also a favorite thing from the Bible. Bible also says, nothing is mine, everything is thine. From the flower, he said, I learned unconditional compassion for all. If you look at the flower gives unconditional smell. Even if you crush it, even if it falls down, it still does not forget its smell. So learn to give unconditional compassion for all. He said, from the snake, I learned how to shed skin. Snake, as you know, friends, he once in a way, once in a year, he sheds his skin and takes a new body. So just like that, all your difficulties and bad experience, just shed it like a skin and move forward. Don't get stuck to certain issues and negative experiences in your life, because if you get stuck, you will not be able to move forward. So be like a snake, shed the skin and move forward. From the bee, he learned hard work and frugality. If you have seen how the bee works from morning to night, it is going from one flower to the other flower, not only doing pollination, but also collecting the nectar, and that nectar, it converts it into honey over a period of time, which the funny part it is, it does not eat itself. It just collects it and keeps it because of hard work and in frugality. He says, from the moth, he learned how to be not to be attracted to sensual pleasures and burn yourself. If you've seen the moth, it gets attracted to the candle and finally it gets burnt itself. He said, from the fish, he learned how to control the tongue. The fish gets caught in the bait because it does not have control of its tongue. So learn to have a control of your tongue. So the first step to spirituality is silence. When you're in most of the ashrams, when you go for a few days, the first thing they will do is to put you on Maun Vrat. That Maun Vrat means that you're not going to talk. Only a particular times you're allowed to talk. And most of the times you will be Mauna. The reason is that if you control your tongue, you have controlled your mind to a very, very great extent. We don't have control over our tongue, because tongue is the only organ which has got two functions. One is to taste and other is to talk. One is to taste, other is to talk. And both ways, it likes spicy things. One is to taste and also talk spicy things. So the day you get control over your tongue, your spiritual journey has started. From the child, he said, I have learned innocence and curiosity. The child, as you know, friends, is very innocent and it's very curious. It always keeps on troubling the mother. What is this? What is that? Always it keeps asking questions. So it learned innocence and curiosity. That's why Bible says you cannot even enter the kingdom of the Lord unless and until you are a child. So learn to be innocent and curious like a child. The four dogs around Lord Dattatreya is the representative of the Vedas. So as you see, friends, in all the gods and goddesses which we have seen, they are the representative of the represented representing the representation. They don't mean what we see, they mean something else. So once you pray by understanding these things, understanding the metaphor that particular shrine or the picture is trying to tell you, your prayers will become more meaningful. Last but not the least, I want to tell you how to pray. Whenever you pray to a particular God, do not ask for anything. Just thank that particular energy. Like if you're praying to Lord Ganesha, so don't say, I want this, I want that, I want this. Instead of that, you say, thank you, God Ganesha, for giving me this. Thank you for giving me this. So when you say thank, then the energy reacts and starts becoming benevolent towards you. Asking for thing will take it away. That energy repels you. But if you thank that particular energy by chanting that mantra, these energies can be activated by chanting that particular mantra of that god minimum 108 times. If you chant 108 times on a particular day, you will get a lot of benefit. Like here I will reveal you the secret. On Mondays you should pray to the Shiva energy and also the Kartik energy and Ganesha energy, all as a family, the Shiva family. On Tuesdays, you should pray to Goddess Durga, like whatever the way I have explained to you. On Wednesday, you should pray to Ganesha. On Thursday, you should pray to your Ishta Devta or your Kula Devta, whosoever is your Ishta Devta, maybe Sai Baba or any guru in your family. It can be even your parents. That is not an issue, but whosoever is your guru, that Thursday is a day to give respects to your guru. Friday is for Goddess Lakshmi. You must pray to Lakshmi on Friday compulsory by wearing yellow clothes. Preferably wear yellow clothes so that you attract Lakshmi in your life. And always keep cleanliness in your house. If you keep your house clean, Goddess Lakshmi comes and she remains. Otherwise, she's chanchal. She just runs away, like a butterfly. Saturday, you should pray to Hanuman. Hanuman Chalisa is a must on Saturday. Hanuman Chalisa protects you from all evil energies whatsoever. It's one of the most powerful things ever created by Tulsidas. And last but not the least, and also on Saturdays, you must pray to the Shani Lord on in the evening, especially after 6:30, 7 o'clock. You must chant the Shani mantra, Om Jum Swaha. If you say this simple mantra, Om Jum Swaha is the Bija mantra of Shani Deva. And on Sundays, you must pray to the Sun God. Sun God is the only God who has got so much of wisdom, and he has so much of power and so much of knowledge. In fact, Arjuna once asked Krishna, after he revealed Bhagavad Gita to him, that, Sir, is this knowledge what you're giving to me? Is it the first time you're revealing it to me? So for that, Krishna said, no. The first person to know this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was the sun. The sun is the originator of all wisdom, and from the sun, sun God gave it to Manu, the first human being on earth. Manu gave it to Ikshaku, and Ikshaku gave it to me, and from me I am giving it to you. So friends, praying to sun God, especially on Sunday, by chanting the Gayatri mantra, Om Bhurбhuvah Swaha Tassavitavarenyam Vargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nam Prachodayata. On Sunday, if you can do it 108 times, nothing like it. It will give you a lot of power and a lot of compassion and wisdom. So friends, I hope you like this video, and if you want to get in touch with me, you can be in touch with me on Facebook, facebook.com/Dr. Sumit Sharma, and you can also log into our website www.imcpt.in and also utopialearning.co.in. I'm also on Instagram, Sharma Dr. Sumit, and Skype isleworth.hk. And also my WhatsApp number is 782-911-7766, 0782-911-7766. If you want more information, please write to me on utopialearnings@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and God bless each one of you.